Wake up, pancreas. I'm Danny.
And I'm Alex.
And welcome to episode 11 of Wake Up, Pancreas.
So today I wanted to talk about what advice would we give each other with a type 1 diabetic? What advice would have helped us the most? What advice would give us almost like a head start? You know what I mean? When it comes to our child. What do you think? I'll start with you.
That's a really good question. What advice? Well, I'll tell you the advice that I've gotten from a lot of parents. It gets easier. It hasn't gotten easier. I think we've gotten used to it and it adjusts to our lifestyle, but there's a lot of anxiety out there when it comes to her going to school. How's it going to go? And letting go. Like that stuff has not gotten easier and maybe it won't until we rip that Band-Aid off this upcoming year. But what advice?
What advice would have helped you out the most? You know what I mean? What needle, what food, what supplements, what vitamins, what medication she could take, you know what I mean? Because everything has sugar in it, and that's something you don't realize when you're starting off. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, let's get some soda. Nope, it has sugar. It's 40 carbs plus. You want to send her skyrocketing?
I think we received really good advice from our first endo when she said, let her live her life and just treat her for it.
Okay.
I think we lucked out with that because, and maybe I have a different perspective because I'm nursing, so I already knew a lot of the medical stuff.
Okay.
But that piece of it has really been, I think, the philosophy we've lived by for the past 2.5 years is it's her life. Let's just live it. I see people on the Facebook page that, I'm in awe how they'll say that their child's A1C, so their average glucose over a 3-month span, is in the 5s.
Okay.
So if you're 7, they try to make the goal for someone Marcel's age below 7.5.
Okay.
So to be at like 5 something is like awesome. That's actually below diabetes. And I wonder what they do because do they let their kids live a normal life, eat anything they want, and just serve as the pancreas? Or is that where we're actually going wrong since Marcel's been diagnosed now for 2.5 years? And yes, she dropped from her first one was 11 point something, but then she was diagnosed, got her insulin, and she's been in the 7s, 7.8, 7.7, 7.5 for 2.5 years.
Okay, and you would say a 7 is a good number, right?
She should be below 7.5. She's 7.5. Her doctor's very happy with that because she's stable.
Okay.
Is what she says. But do other people live by that advice, or is that advice hindering us? Or do you?
But at the same time, don't we see and we read about these kids that revolt at the end, right? That as they get older, you know what I mean, as they get exposed to more stuff, especially when it comes to school, right? All their friends are eating whatever they want. They never had a cupcake, you know what I mean? So are we helping her out? It's like, look, you're normal like everybody else. You can have a cupcake, you just gotta treat yourself. You can eat cake, but you gotta limit yourself and you gotta treat yourself.
I think the approach we're taking is going to benefit her in the long run.
Yes.
That I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that she doesn't really have that rebellious phase as much as others because she has been able to just live life and this is just part of life. We go about our daily routine and we just bring insulin with us kind of thing. But I also know that with high blood sugars, it can affect her physically as she gets older. So it's like, how do you find that balance? I don't have the answer for that.
No.
We may be helping her emotionally and mentally as she grows, but are we hindering her physically? I don't know.
Well, going back to what advice would you give as a nurse, right? And this is not medical advice, but you as a nurse, if you were talking to yourself right now and had a patient come in, what advice would you give yourself as a nurse talking to a type 1 diabetic?
Well, when I've done education for type 1 diabetic patients who are like in their like 20s, the first thing I say to them is, this is really overwhelming.
Okay.
This is overwhelming. I said, but it will get easier and let's take it step by step.
Yeah, step by step.
So I just acknowledge that it's overwhelming. Like it's everywhere. And you did not grow up with this.
Yeah. As a mother, what advice would you give to yourself? And we understand it's overwhelming, but what advice like gets you like, hey, we got this. We still got this.
Remember that she's a child. Because it's really easy, and I know we do it, and I bet you other people do as well, to become complacent and then just be like, come on, you've literally put a pot on every 3 days for the last 2.5 years.
Yes.
You've checked your fingers, like finger sticks, how many times, you've done how many Dexcoms, why are you still crying? Why is it still taking 10 minutes for you to get the courage to push the button? Because she wants to push the button, but she's like, it has to be quiet, I have to be mentally prepared, and she'll take her deep breaths, which is
Yes.
actually huge for a 5-year-old to be able to do. Huge. Adults couldn't do that. But I think it's remembering to stay patient, and that she's a child. She's the one living it, and just be
Yeah, I
there with
agree.
her as she does it. Because it's hard.
Man, it's hard. I can tell you, as a father, and if I was talking to myself as a dad, to another dad, my first thing out of my mouth, I think, is with, hey, you got this. Take a breath and keep moving forward. And it sounds pretty basic. It sounds like, hey, you got this, thumbs up, and I'm just waving in the background.
So, audience, you can't see me sitting here giggling to myself and smiling, but I actually had the same thought before I opened my mouth when I was like, remember she's a child? But in my head, I'm like, just take a breath and keep on going. You got this.
You got
but
this.
it's the truth.
It's the truth.
It's not going to end. This is life now. So figure out how to incorporate it into your daily routine.
I agree. And sometimes you have to tug in the other person there. Just tag them in. You're having a tough day. Everybody's crying. Everybody's yelling. The children are just running amok, and her sugar's acting up all at the same time, right? Go ahead and get the other spouse and then get the partner, tag them in. It's like, hey, it's your turn now. You know what I mean? Walk away. Walk away. Take a deep breath. Go do some pull-ups. Come back, and I got this again.
What advice would you give to, I would say, grandparents? So this summer we're going to have some grandparents come visit, and I'm sure they're going to say, go out, enjoy yourselves, we got this. What advice would you give to them? Because, of course, they've never done this before.
No, they've never done it. And I think and through my eyes, right, and I've seen every movie out there of grandparents, right, over treating their kids with candy and giving whatever they want. And I want them to have that experience. I want the grandparents are there to spoil the kids. You as a parent are there to discipline them and make sure they go the right path. Right? So of course they're gonna spoil them. You have zero power what the parent says or the grandparent says. So go ahead, spoil them, and you just be in the background, tell them, hey, how many cars with that? And they're not gonna know how many cars is that, and that's okay. It's not their daily life. It's your kid. It's your kid. So you have to take responsibility. You're like, yeah, let me just see the candy real quick before you give it to her, and break off a piece and
just teach them how to use the Omnipod so that they can give insulin. And we'll say, if you're going to give something that's high in carbs, just treat her 20 minutes early.
Yeah.
And if she starts going low, just give it to her.
And if she starts going high, and this is something that happens all the time, is that their devices start going off. Like I call it the small nuclear alarm, right? It starts buzzing out, beep, 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 and people start freaking out because they don't hear it constantly. And it's something I forget. And I've had it happen before at her school, or her daycare, I should say, where the teachers it's going off unusually a lot today. And to me, it's like, well, that's kind of normal. She goes up and down, she's running, so her sugar's gonna go super low. Like treat her for some candy or some protein, and then her sugar is stable, and then it'll shoot up super high because she started eating, and then it'll level out. We do try to treat her 20 minutes before, but sometimes we can't.
That's great advice, I think. So spoiler alert, not to change the subject, but tomorrow I am going to be emailing Marcel's endocrinologist and requesting a referral, or authorization, I should call it, a prior authorization for the Omnipod 5. So we'll have to talk about that next episode, see how it's going, the referral process, where we have to get the meds, what it looks like when we finally start moving to that. And I'd love to see, so right now it is middle of May. I'd love to see where she's at before she goes off to school, like July, August, with this new artificial pancreas technology with her A1C.
Who's a new supplier? It's Costco, right?
We're thinking about doing Costco because it can't be Express Scripts, and it can't be on base right now based on TRICARE, who's our insurance company, but we can do it with a network pharmacy. So most likely Costco, because I feel like you can trust Costco for everything.
All right. That's good.
Yeah. So tune in next week so we can fill you in on what the beginning of that journey looks like. All right. Have a good one.